Right. So thank you for joining the webinar. We will get started on it right away. As I was saying, in terms of the tute, you can go and download it from events.advi.lk website. If you are a class student, you already have the tute with you. You would have given the printed version. If you are not, you can actually download it from this website. Okay. Now, let's not waste too much time. We'll get on to it right away. The focus of covering today's webinar is basically chapter 1 in economics, right? And you know that there are 12 chapters as far as the economics syllabus is concerned. Okay. Now, if you're doing A levels and whether you're doing commerce or art stream, right? You have your 3 subjects that you need to do, and you need to get an A for basically all 3 of this subject. And in addition to that, your path, your target should also not only to be getting 3 A's, but you should also try to get into university. That should be everybody's goal. If you, to be honest, if you don't have this goal, I would say don't do A levels. It's a waste of time if you don't want to get into university, to be honest, or if you want to go abroad and do this thing, it's fine. Okay. So you have your 4 main universities in Sri Lanka. You have your Colombo, you have Japura, right? And then you have Kalaniya, and then you have Peradeniya. And then in addition to that, you have Moratuwa, Runa also, and Bayamba as well. But these are the 4 main. So your target has to be to get into one of these universities. Okay. So how do we get an A? Now, today we are talking about economics. What is it that we need to do to get an A for economics? I will start off with that, maybe spend 2 minutes taking you through what the process is. And then we will start the chapter 1 because there is going to be a series of webinars. Now, you all know we do a lot of things for O-levels. Most of you all must be our O-level students. A-levels, of course, most of the time, whatever we have done so far, we have always done it privately, kept it under wraps, focused on the batches, the small batches that we have and trying to push them to the university. So any of these universities, if you go to Advi alumni, the old people are there. In all these batches, they are there, right? Right now, what I'm going to basically do is now, those webinars, all of what we do for O-levels, it is now will be done for A levels as well, because now it's time, I think, now we bring that out, right? So in terms of the webinars, in terms of econ webinars, in terms of past paper analysis, all of that, there's a lot coming down the line. In terms of accounting and business studies also, there's a lot coming down the line. Follow the channel, you will know when and when what is done. Okay. So today's target is chapter 1. As we progress through this, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, like that, you all will see one after the other coming in. So you will be able to cover this, right? At least the majority of it. Now, in terms of the process itself, truth be told, A levels is actually very easy. That is what I always tell these common students as well again and again. Science or not, there is a process to follow. As long as you follow that process, as long as you're picture perfect in that process, getting an A is actually not a big deal. What is this process? First and foremost, you need to get your theory covered. And you can't wait for 2 years until all the way up until, whatever that you're like on the day before the exam, you can't wait until you cover the theory. You need to cover the theory much ahead, as much as possible. So how do you need to cover the theory? As far as Advi is concerned, if you're a student of ours, you will get your tutes, your printed tutes, and you will get your notes. Ideally, however, whether you're going to school or whatever it is, your syllabus has to be covered first. This is section number 1 that you're supposed to do. Always remember, just because your tutes are completed, just because your notes are completed, and just because all of that is in your head also, doesn't mean you're going to get an A. That is just, as I always say, 33% of your syllabus, 33% of your A. It will probably maximum for A levels, probably will give you a C or a B. Then what is it in addition to that for you to get to that A? Immediately after this, right, as advised, as much as possible, you should try and get your own short note done. Because the truth is, there are 12 chapters in econ, 16 chapters in accounting, 16 or 18 chapters or something in business studies. If you're doing ICT, that's another 16 or whatever. Whatever it is, how many number of units, you can't memorize and remember all of that in your head. And to be honest, as a student myself, over the years, I have never memorized tutes and notes. I will take those tutes and notes, put a short note of my own with the most important parts of it. Okay. And then based on that, I will go and do the paper. So far, it has always worked. So short notes is the most important thing. As far as chapter 1 short note is concerned, today I will put it for you. For years, for the last few years, for our students, we've been putting the short note also and giving them, to be very honest, right? So you have your tute, then you have your notes, and then you have your short note. I'm going to call it as SN. In this, the most important things you need to remember in each and every chapter has to be there. Like definitions, what are the most important characteristics for you to remember? Like, is there anything like a shortcut can I remember? Those kind of things. For chapter 1, we are going to put it today in today's webinar. As we progress, we're going to put it. Okay. In addition to this, now, this is basically the syllabus component of it. Now, in addition to this, which is 33% still, your middle 33% is basically your past papers. Without doing past papers, you can't even imagine of coming close to any. And past papers, well, you have paper 1, which is MCQs, and we have paper 2, which is essays. And you need to be able to do a chapter-wise past paper analysis for at least the last 10 years, minimum of the last 10 years. If you can do more than that, that's good. But at least a minimum of last 10 years. This is basically what your second 33% is, more or less. And end of the day, what I always tell the students is, if you are very good at these two components, you can actually get to any. You don't have to do a lot beyond this. As long as you have your short notes in your head, as long as you have done the last 10 years past papers, to a certain extent, you will understand what are the different types of questions that have come. And most of the time, as I always say, A-level is like a Totta Baba exam. They can make it extremely difficult, but the questions they give is like a Totta Baba questions only they give, to be very honest. They should start like making it harder, to be very honest. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Okay. But if you can finish this, this is that process of getting to any. But the truth is, this is not enough. Okay. So in today's webinar, out of this, what we will be covering in today for chapter 1 is, I will quickly run you through the theory. So I have given you all a tute. You all can download it from the website. Plus, you can download it. We asked my students, you all already have it printed. So we will quickly run through the tutes and the notes, that component, and we will short form this into the short note. We're going to do that first. Okay. Past paper analysis, we can't do everything in 2 hours, 3 hours. So I will give you a separate way to cover this P1 and P2. Usually in classes, what I do is I give something called as VOD. VOD means video on demand. Every single past paper is like a small video, 5, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on the type of the question. You know, you're supposed to finish off all of that. So the students in my class, you all know, I've already told you, all of these past paper analysis has to be maintained in a separate file. Now, after today's short note and after today's revision is done, I'm going to give you those past paper VODs for MCQ and paper 2 one by one. You're supposed to write, go through all of that, study all of that, write the analysis in a foolscap paper, put it to the file. You have to maintain a separate file for chapter 1. It has to be a blue color file. Red color file for accounting, green color file for business, right? We don't have ICT with us. So for those of you who are doing it, maintain a separate color for ICT as well. So file, chapter 1 file, make a undo. If you have done this, to be very honest, by the time you come to your A levels, and if you are versatile with this, with all chapter 12, it's 12 chapters, you're already at any, right? But to get to university, that is not enough. Getting 3A is also not enough. You all know that ZATSCO, there's something called ZATSCO. And you know, for Japura, Colombo and all, now 1.6, 1.7, that is the ZATSCO that is required. So you should always target a 2.0 against ZATSCO ekak, end of the day. Then you can go to any university for any program you want. So for you to get to that 2.0 ZATSCO, or at least 1.9, you need like a 90 mark in account, 85, 90 mark. Account wala 90 mark gannavai kiyanne, your ZATSCO will be very high. Okay. So for you to target to that 90 mark, now 75 is also an A, that is this. What do you do for the third component, right? That is where your model papers, your question banks, all of these things come into play, right? So model papers, now after doing past papers, you will be like, okay, those are too easy. We need to try and do more like harder questions. Today, we'll be doing some of these questions from chapter 1. We can't do all the past papers, so I'll do that separately. But some of the model questions, I'll show you what is the trend of questions that has come in the past, like last 5 years, and what are the new kind of questions that are coming, which you need to be prepared for. As far as chapter 1 is concerned, we can discuss that. You need to do that part, and you need to practice using writing answers. You need to practice using time. So if you're, anyways, if you're part of us, these things, there'll be something called spot exams, which means every month there are 25 MCQs for you to do, right? Every month end or whatever, you're supposed to do this. So this is something that you have to do. If you have to actually try to find these questions of your own if you're not having these as part of your practice programs, right? And then in addition to that, you need to focus on your term tests. So in our case, we have our semester exams every 3 months, every 2 months, where you're supposed to do the paper 2 questions semester, right? Where it will mark and you'll are given the marks and things like that. So these things also have to happen on a monthly basis. You target, so you study this, you do the theory, you do the short note, you study, you do the past papers, and then you do the model papers. Model papers are usually supposed to be harder than the past papers also. So you train by using these two, spots and the semesters, and obviously the full model papers that come. By the time you come to grade 13 in your last 6 months and all, you should do full model papers. And more you do, the more practice you get. You can time yourself and you can do a little bit more advanced questions. If you can finish that as well, that is basically your 90A or your uni entrance A, basically 90 marks and whatever it is. The more of this you do, the faster of this you have completed, you will get towards that process. Now, getting an A includes all of this. So, I mean, if there are students who, you're at a whatever, you're not at an A already, that is primarily because the process. That's why I always say trust the process, right? It's because maybe you're lacking in the past papers, you're lacking in the short notes, or you're lacking in the basic understanding of certain chapters, right? Or you have not have enough model paper practice, basically. Because sometimes people memorize and go, but then they can't do these different kind of questions that come, sometimes you're stumped, you're prepared for past paper kind of questions, but all of a sudden some new kind of friend kind of question comes and you're like, oh shit, what the hell is this? So this is that A level, that full package process, right? And end of the day, if you can follow this from end to end, wherever, whatever, however you can with the school or classes or whatever it is, believe me, your journey towards A is actually not that difficult. And for economics, anyways, it's a choosing game. Although there are 12 chapters in paper 2, you don't have to do 12 chapters. You have to do only 5. And in paper 1, MCQ, of course, in a mix and match, it will come. So you can pick and choose, you can play to your strengths, and getting to that A is not a hard thing as far as econ is concerned. Plus, getting to that 90, if you properly plan and study and do with this proper practice, you can actually get that. So this is the process. Okay. Now, today we only have like 2 hours with us or so. Obviously, it's the first of many webinars to come. So in the first webinar, I'm going to tell you what we are going to cover is we're going to start off with chapter 1s. We'll quickly take a look at the theory. In terms of the theory, we'll brush it up. We'll do a revision. There could be people in this seminar who have not done chapter 1 yet. So you all will be able to cover up chapter 1, the theory part. And while we cover the theory part, we're going to put the short notes. So ideally, if you're my student, you should have a file, chapter 1 blue color file, and this short note has to go into that file. Okay. Today, we won't look at the past papers. I will give you a way to access these down the line, right? Maybe coming week. But today, we will be looking at some of the question banks, some of the model questions that have come. What is the past paper trend? And what are some of the difficult questions that we could do? Okay. So that is today's plan. Whatever we can't cover today, next Friday night. So you can book Friday nights and keep 8 to 10, right? This is good. This is primarily going to be our webinar time going forward for A levels. We will start with chapter 1 econ, but we can't finish today. If we can't finish anything today, next Friday we will cover it. And then chapter 2, chapter 3, like that, we intend to continue. So you can keep this Friday 8 to 10:30 slot booked, right? That will be webinars for econ, accounting and business after this. Okay, right. So that is your introduction. If you are new to Advi, if you don't know me or whatever Advi and whatever all of this, and if all of this is new to you, I can't spend a lot of time because now we are 8:30. I want to start chapter 1. You can check this website. There's a website called GCE A-level.advi.lk. We have not marketed our A levels a lot because our batches have always been small and focused. If you go there, you'll be able to find my past batches. Our past batches, the people who have made it into university, people who have gotten A's, gold medals, and all of these things. District ranks are also there. You can actually go and check. It's been a good story so far. Now only we are actually opening it out to webinars. Okay, fine. So now we can start chapter 1, right? So chapter 1 has 2 sections. One is basic economics, where we study some of the basic fundamental economic theories such as scarcity and things like that. And then we have PPC, production possibility curves. Sorry, it's lagging. I think this is okay. A good question. Are we supposed to get a file for short notes separately and one for past papers? Most of the time in the past, I've always said maintain one file, one chapter, one file for short note and past papers both. Short note won't be that long, so you can stick to the past papers itself. Are all webinars free? Most of the webinars will be free. There'll be some seminars that come down the line. Other than that, the webinars usually are going to be open. Okay, right. So we are going to start off by covering basic economics first, right? And then we will come to PPC. If we don't have enough time to cover both today, we will have another webinar to cover that. But let's cover this first. Basic economics part, we will cover that first. Okay. Now, the tute has already been uploaded. The link is there. You can take it from that, download it and keep it. Today, we are not going to spend a lot of time writing stuff because we only have 2 hours, which means we have to cover as much as possible. Okay. So I will take maybe the first 2 to 3 minutes in each of these sections to take you through the theory, first and foremost. Then we are going to take another 5 to 10 minutes to write the short notes, right? So whenever I ask you, now some of these tutes in some areas, they are blank. So if I tell you to take a screenshot of it, please take a screenshot of it so that you can fill the tute later. People who have the printed tute, you can fill it. If you don't have it, print it and fill it. Okay. So take the screenshots. Don't come back to me and asking for the screenshots. As soon as I tell you, you have to do it, right? And in addition to that, while I run through the session itself, I'm going to start putting the short notes also. Definitions, what are the short notes, all of that I'm going to start putting. These also I will ask you to take screenshots so that after today's session, you can sit down, take some time and slowly, nicely write it in a bunch of full caps and file it in your chapter 1. So today you don't have to write the short note part, but you can take screenshots of it and file it in your file. Okay. But the questions we will be discussing, some of the questions we will be discussing, for those I actually want you to attempt the answers. I'll give you time for it as well. And for those, of course, you can basically see how that goes. All right. Fine. So in terms of chapter 1, the first section is on foundation of economics, where we talk about mainly couple of topics, which is economic behavior of people is one of the things we cover. Economics is a social science scale, we cover that. Importance of learning economics, definition of economics is one. And then we study the relationship or the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. And then another two topics, differences between positive statements and normative statements. This is the first section in chapter 1. Let's talk about that theory first, put it into the short note, and then we'll take a look at some of the questions that have come from these areas. Okay, fine. In terms of all of these notes, don't overload yourself. Oh my God, there's so much notes for me to remember. It's only the short note that's important, which you have to memorize, right? As far as this section itself is concerned, give me a minute, right? The most important things for you to remember is economic behavior. What do you mean by economic behavior? As far as economics is concerned, it's one of those subjects that actually studies the behavior of people. And behavior of people not in like a psychology way. Psychology is about whether you're mental or not. No, not that. Here, how do you behave whenever you want to fulfill your needs and wants? Now, for an example, if you're hungry, what do? Go to your kitchen, ask your mother for food, or you open the fridge and eat. That's basically the behavior, your behavior in fulfilling your need, which is food. So economics is one of those subjects that actually looks at how people, humans, fulfill our needs and wants. Simple as that. Okay. So we have something called physical needs, which we can directly fulfill, such as food and shelter, what we eat, what we wear, whatever. And then we have something called mental needs, which cannot be directly fulfilled by goods. Goods means like anything that we can physically see and touch. Like for an example, love, kindness, sacrifice. These are all like you can't give like a pen and say I love you. No. The pen is not the love. No. The love is the love, right? So those are not things that are like that. Those are not things that can be directly fulfilled by goods. Whereas needs, of course, you can directly fulfill by goods. So these are some of the definitions as far as economics is concerned. I'm not going to put this into the short note because that's not that important as far as this is concerned. It's in the tune. We've highlighted it. Let it be. Right. Once the page is done, I will zoom out and I will give you time to take a screenshot. You can take a screenshot. You can highlight it in your own version of the tune. Okay. Ilangata, we are saying economics. There's always this age-old argument that says, is economics a science or an art? Arts, you have art subjects. Science, you have science subjects. No, economics is something that comes in commerce stream and art stream both. So like, is it an art or is it a science? To be honest, we call it as a social science. Why social science? It's social because it studies the economic behavior of people. Social means about people, no? So that's why it's social. And why is it a science? Because most of the theories that are in economics is all like based on scientific methods. It studies how people react, how people behave, and it has come up with theories. There's something called law of demand, something called law of supply. These are all very logical. If you're a logical person, you will actually understand economics easily, right? Because these are these are all for, like common sense things, basically, right? So because we are using scientific methods only, it's kind of like called as a science, right? But it's a social science because it actually studies about people. That's why we call it the queen of social sciences. Again, I'm not going to add this to the short note because not that important, but you can just remember. And why is economics different from the other sciences? We are saying because these are theories that cannot be proven at laboratories. Now this is about people. No, man. You can't catch like one random bugger from this class, make him sit down and test him like a lab rat. Give him food and see how he reacts, give him clothing and see how technically, right? Because this is about physical behavior of people. Sorry, it's again lagging. Yeah, okay, sorry. Right? So technically, we can't prove these in labs. So that's why there's a difference between the other sciences. In your term test, sometimes these questions can come. A-levels, we don't focus too much on these sections to ask questions, right? So you can just highlight these and keep, right? But not that important as far as A-levels is concerned. But term test, maybe 1 or 2 questions can come. Now, we are going to now move into the definition for economics. Now, that part I'm going to add to as our first point in our short note, which is the definition for economics. What is the definition for economics? We say that it is the subject that studies the relationship. So I'm going to put the definition here. Economics is the subject that studies the relationship between scarce resources and human bonds. That is what is called as economics theory, right? Let's say unlimited human. Let's add that word here, unlimited human bonds. So this is your first note in the short note, and it is also the first definition we are learning as far as economics is concerned. Now, what is this? What do you mean by scarce resources and what do you mean by unlimited human bonds? Let's quickly learn that. We will learn this again in the next section, but this entire section is about these two only. See, think about this, right? As humans, right? We have our needs. What do you mean by our needs? What's the most important need for you as far as you're concerned? You have food, right? And then without food, you will die. Food and water both. So include both of those as your need. And then in terms of your next needs, basically, then you have your clothing. Because if you go to the road without your clothes, you're basically going to get stoned and you will die, right? So that. And then you have shelter. Because as far as humans are concerned, we need to be protected from the disasters, natural disasters, wild animals, all of that is there. So shelter, right? And in addition to this, there are two other basic needs, communication and transportation, actually. As humans, we need these. These are some of our basic needs, we can say. Okay. But in addition to these, we also have our complicated needs, such as Entertainment is there, education is there, health is there, security. These are all some of our advanced needs that we have. But without all of these things, we will die. That is what needs is concerned. To be honest, we say these needs are limited. In the next section also, we will learn this, but now itself, I will teach and finish it off. Needs are limited. This is something you've already studied in chapter grade 5. From grade 5, you all are studying the difference between needs and wants. No need to spend too much time here, right? But as far as wants is concerned, we say wants are unlimited. Why? Because if you take food, something wrong with this camera. If you take food, right, there are 1,001 different types of food. If you take clothing, there are millions and millions of different kinds of clothing. And it's not ending also. Every day there's a new kind of cloth that comes. Every day, poncho, pincho, kelo, all sorts of kind of clothes that basically come in. So when it comes to humans, our wants, they are always unlimited. If you want, we will invent a new kind of cloth and we will market that and we will start wearing that today also. Right? That is how humans are. But when it comes to our resources, what do you mean by resources? If you want to stitch a t-shirt, you need what? Textile, you need cotton. Cotton is a resource, right? Our resources are limited. So needs are unlimited. Sorry, wants are unlimited. Okay, resources are limited. This is a problem, no? Yes, this is a problem. Why? We want, if you take chicken, we have an enormous amount of chicken in this world. We have like different types of food chicken. You have barbecue chicken, spicy chicken, you have these curry chicken, masala chicken, tikka chicken, paneer chicken, so many varieties. But the number of actual hen or actual chicken that is there in the world, which you can cook, that is limited, no? If all 7 billion people want to eat chicken at the same time, okay, now it's 8 billion. So if all 8 billion people want to eat chicken at the same time, we can't. Because not that many chickens are there in this world. Yes. So that is the fundamental problem in economics. Fundamental problem, central problem of economics is called scarcity. So the next section also I've already explained now. Scarcity means this. We have unlimited wants, but limited resources. Because we have limited resources, we can't fulfill our unlimited wants that we have. That is what scarcity means. Okay, so that is the fundamental problem in economics, central problem of economics. And that's basically what economics is about, how to solve it. We can't solve it, there's no solution to scarcity, but how do we balance it? How do we adjust it? That's basically what economics is about. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm adding to our short note because that's the first important thing. Definition for economics is basically that. Okay, we will come again to scarcity in the next section, but I'm going to finish this section first. Next, we learn actually what is the importance of learning economics? Why is it learn? Again, this is also a question that can sometimes come in your term tests, right? Unlikely for it to much of it to come in A levels usually, but term tests, it's one of those questions that can come, right? Anyways, so importance of learning economics. Obviously, if you don't know economics, it's hard to rule the country. It's hard to, develop the country economically. It's hard to run a political party because you won't have policies. If you want to know what happens to a country if the country is not run by using economics, Sri Lanka is the best example. When we go through the syllabus, by the time we come to chapter 7, chapter 8 and all, there are some sections where, like, if economies fail, these are the things that happen. There is a list. 1, 2, 3. They give a list. If it's very easy to teach chapter 8 and all in Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka has followed that. It's like they took the textbook and they are like, okay, how do you ruin an economy? Okay, you should do this first. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. They have done one after the other so that the economy went for a 6. And the funniest part is they have the audacity to do this, ruin the economy, right? And then after that, there was an amazing central bank governor called Kabral. We lovingly call him as Gobbaral. You all will hear me talking about this in chapter 8 and all. So Gobbaral actually ruined the economy, and then had the audacity to write a book saying how to build an economy. Like what are the most important principles of building an economy? He should write a book on how to destroy an economy. Anyways, we are the good example for if you don't follow economics, what will happen to a country? That is Sri Lanka. Important in ruling a country, important to make decisions, important for growing the economy. All of this is what importance of learning economics is. And for us, it's important as a student also and as a citizen also because we will know whom to vote. For years, we've been voting for the most amazing parties. No, why? Because all our aunties and uncles don't know economics. That's why. Okay. So we are not going to add that into the short note also because again, not that important as far as that section is concerned. Okay. Now we are going to come into a very important section, which is microeconomics versus macro. Let's quickly cover that part. Each section, I think we can cover within like 15 to 20 minutes. So micro versus macro. This is of course very important because our syllabus is also structured like this. Micro means all the smaller components of the economy. For an example, household. Every house is a micro component of an economy, right? If you're talking about a single product, right? Or if you're talking about a single company, firm, right? Or an industry kind of thing. These are all micro components, small aspects of the economy. And then you have, on the other hand, the macro. Macro usually is, again, macro usually is, sorry, in between, I need to switch off and switch on the camera. Okay, can you see? Right. Macro is usually the aggregate, we say. What do you mean by the aggregate? It means sum of all these small units that we have. For an example, on a country level, right? If we are considering something from a country's perspective, on a country level, maybe whatever we are taking into consideration, that basically comes under macro. So I'm going to add the two definitions for micro and macro. Let me add a smaller table here. I will add micro and macro. So let's say, sure, what's wrong with this camera? No? Give me a minute. Not reading. Oh. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't get shut down again, but we'll try. Right. Sorry. Bit of a camera problem today. Sorry, wasn't expecting that. Okay, so back to the short notes, right? We are going to say microeconomics. What's the definition for microeconomics? Microeconomics is basically, we are saying the study of behavior of small units of the economy. You can remember some examples, okay? In your short note also, you can include it and you can remember some examples. Some of the examples are also in your syllabus also, we go with that only. For an example, demand and supply. So one product, there can be demand, there can be supply. We'll talk about this in chapter 2. Then we can talk about production costs, different types of productions that are there in that's actually covered in chapter 4. Then we talk about consumer behavior, how consumers behave in the market. Scarcity is in chapter 1, choices in chapter 1. So these are some of the popular examples for microeconomics. I'm going to give you a list here. I'm going to say demand supply. I'm going to say production. Then I'm going to say scarcity, right? And I'm also going to say choice. So these are usually your chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4 in economics. Your syllabus, that is all microeconomics. And your macro actually starts from chapter 5. Chapter 5 is macro. So what do you mean by macro? That is the study of aggregate functioning. Which is this, the study of aggregate functioning of the economy. You can remember it like that. Which is sum of all the smaller unit scalar we say. Some of the most popular examples are, right, in the tute itself we have given. So I will take some of the couple of ones. Economic growth, whenever economies grow, whenever economies decline, they are called recessions, right? Economic growth, recessions or depressions, study these later down the line. Things like inflation, when the prices of goods are increasing, exchange rates, employment level, unemployment level, import, export, these are all from a country's perspective only we learn. So those come under the macroeconomics perspective. We'll do an example question now very quickly for you to brush up what this is. But before that, I will quickly add the examples here. So you have economic growth and economic recessions. Then you have things like inflation. You have things like unemployment. Let's say import export. These are all things from a country's perspective, where it doesn't affect like one product, it doesn't affect like one unit, it actually affects all of the units, all of the products in the economy, right? If you talk about one product, that is micro. But if we talk about the production of all different kinds of products in a country, that is actually macro. Okay, so let's do a very quick example on this before we proceed to the next section, which is positive versus normative. Here is one question for you to focus on. So that's, tell me from these lists, from this list. So these are some of the questions that can come. I've just listed down some of the questions. There are class students, you all will get this, you all will get this printed in the coming weeks when we do these discussions once again. Others, you all can take a screenshot of this. These are some of the questions that we will discuss as far as today is concerned also from the foundation of economics part. So far, if we ask what is the definition for economics, you can write. If we ask what is the importance of learning economics, you can write. I've given that answers in the tunes itself. Why is economics considered a social science? I told you why it's social, because of people. Why is it a science? Because it's based on scientific methods. You have to write like that now. Make it, I will add an answer because the other two are direct answers. No, make it, I will add an answer. Why is it social? Because this is related to people. It studies the behavior of people. Guys, when you are writing an essay answer, right? Make again a katha karamu very quickly. 3 marks is given for your essay, this question, right? So it has to be a paragraph question. You can't write in bullet points. We will expect a paragraph. You can write in certain, you can write bullet points. Make it, I want a paragraph. Why? Because it's a why. Why is economics considered a social science? So when you're addressing this question, you have to say economics. You can give the definition for economics if you want. And then you can say it's considered social. As far as it's social is concerned, it's because it studies the behavior of people. You can say fulfilling, their needs and wants. And why is it considered a science? You can say it's considered a science as part of parcel because, right, it is based on scientific methods. These 2 points has to come in your answer. Whenever we ask a question, if we are giving you 3 marks, right, you need to say, okay, what are those 3 main points I'm going to write in that paragraph? And as far as your writing is concerned, these are 2 of the main points. And maybe you can also start off with the definition. Even though we haven't really asked what the definition for economics is, you can first write the definition for economics. Then you can say why it's considered social. Then you can say why it's considered as a science. And in addition to this, any other point from the tute also, if you include, that's your 3 marks in that paragraph. Always, before you start an answer in econ is about 2 things. Plan your answer. If we are giving you 3 marks, we are kind of like expecting 3 points and we are looking for those 3 points in your paragraph. That's the first. Second, economics is also about showing off your knowledge. If you know these things, if you know the answer to these things, you need to show off that knowledge. You need to write a little bit. Don't write pages and pages for 3 marks, by the way. Just a small paragraph is more than enough. Half a page and 3 marks, then you don't have enough time to write the rest of the ones. No. But you need to show that and you need to tackle that question properly. So these are basic questions. I'm not writing the answer. Make it none. I have written 3 points, which I will look for if basically if I give you this in your term test or A levels or what. Okay. Difference between micro and macro, anyways, the answer to that is this one. Right? Make it in a short note taker, whatever the micro and macro is. Right? And then you all tell me now, if we give you a list of things like this, make it, higher price of milk and all of these things, there are 6. Tell me what are the micro components and tell me what are the macro components in this. What is the first one? Price of milk, and the milk is just one product. Anything related to one product, anything related to the price of one product, basically, more or less. That is basically micro. But if we say this is related to all the price of all the products, then inflation comes into play. Price of all the products, general price of all the products can be inflation. A can, that's macro. Okay. Cost of producing 1 kilogram of sugar. Once again, it's one product. It's just the cost we are talking about. Again, that's micro. Sorry, my camera. Okay. And then unemployment rate, of course, is a country level problem. And they are saying that 7% in 2020. So obviously that is macro. Exchange rate is again a country level problem, right? Because that's not a product level problem. No, it's for the whole country. So that again is macro. What about COVID? COVID brought economic declines to several countries in 2020. So economic decline can again a country level problem. It's the aggregate of everything, right? Again, that is macro. And last one, price of milk and rubber. This time we are talking about two products, but still it's not all the products in the economy. It's just two products in the economy. So if it's one or two or three or four products, basically, as long as it's not all the products, as long as it's one or two or whatever individual units we are considering, that will come under micro. Okay. So this is how you distinguish between these two. Fair enough. So you can take a screenshot of this. This is not in the tute. Down the line for the students in the classes, I will give you all this printed. It will come in a separate book, in a separate tute. But the others who are, anyways, just take a screenshot and keep. Nothing to lose, no. Screenshots you can save and keep in your laptop, right? So just save and keep. Right. We're done with this. We're moving back to the short note. So there's one more section to discuss, which is positive versus normative statements. Let's quickly discuss that as well. The last part of the first part of chapter 1. So positive versus normative statements, there's a, in the tute, there's a long ass description, right? I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to basically try and give you a summarized version of what this is. Remember, as far as economics is concerned, there are a lot of policies that we have to do. Economics, policy making is one of the most important things in economics. Therefore, right, when we are talking about positive, like when we are talking about economics itself, right, there are some statements in economics, some facts we call it. For an example, if I say, right, the inflation rate in Sri Lanka was 7%. This year 7%, last year was 7%. That's a fact, right? It's a fact. Why is it a fact? Because I may be wrong, by the way. Maybe last year was not 7%. Maybe it was 8. Maybe it was 10. But it's still a fact because I can go and measure it. I can go and calculate it and see whether it was actually 7. If it was 7, fine. If it was not, correct it and put it as 8 or 10 or whatever. Positive statements are facts, right? They can be verified. They can be calculated. They can be measured. They are like facts, basically. So facts, we also call it as stats, right? These are very important as far as economics is concerned. Why? Because economics is full of stats, end of the day. Right? Because we have a lot of statistics that we have to maintain, right? Hold on. We have a lot of data that we have to calculate. What is the inflation? What is the, growth rates, positive statements and normative statements. Method of microeconomics and macro. So this is your first short note that you need to remember from the first part. Don't worry, the rest of the sections won't take this long. I mean, we just started, so I've taken a little bit of time, but won't take this much time. As far as positive statements are concerned, I want you to remember, they are statements that can be verified. Okay, where we call them as facts. Real world facts can be tested if they are correct or wrong. And most of these are objective in nature. If I say inflation is 7%, inflation is 7% only. It's not going to be 7% for you and 8% for me. We are both Sri Lankans now. Both of us, it's 7% only. Okay. But normative statements, if you take, what are those? These are what you call as opinions, right? If I say, our government should give a salary increase of 5,000 to all the government staff, that is my opinion. That's not a fact. Whether the government does it or not is their problem. But if I come out and say, government should actually give a 5,000, salary increase, or a strike karanne then, the Viduli Bala, the electric, this thing is striking for salary hikes and everything. Those are all their opinions. Those are not facts, right? So normative statements are opinions. And why are normative statements important? Why is a person's opinion important? End of the day, we say they are the ones that end up as policies. I'll tell you what that means. So these are subjective, and the shortcut to differentiating between a positive statement and a normative statement is most of the normative statements always have these words: should, must, would, will. Like for an example, all government staff should get a salary hike. That's an opinion. The word should is there, should get a salary, right? Or government must give free education to everyone. Must. That's also an opinion, end of the day, right? So why are these two important? Positive statements are facts. So within bracket, I'm going to say facts or stats, basically. Normative statements are the opinions that actually end up as policies one day. What do you mean by that? If a economic party comes out and says, we want to do these and things, those are their opinions. But one day when they implement those opinions, now if Anura Kumar Disanayaka said that he's going to arrest all these fellows, that was his opinion. But now if he's actually arresting all these fellows, it doesn't become an opinion anymore. No, it has now become a fact. Ranil Rajapaksa, I was about to say. Ranil Wickramasinghe was arrested. When Anura was before arresting him, when he was in the political parties, he was saying he should be arrested. Then that becomes an opinion. But the moment he came into power, he put that opinion into practice, and the Bhaga got him arrested basically. So Ranil Wickramasinghe was arrested now. That has now become a fact. So normative statements will become positive statements if they are done. That is the relationship between these two. So first and foremost, I want you to remember these points regarding these two. Sometimes these are asked in term test, sometimes in A levels also it can come. And then what are the different kind of questions that can come from this section? You have these kind of questions first and foremost. They'll ask like, what is a positive statement and what is the relationship between the positive and normative? What you have to write this answer. Positive means facts, stats, and then these points. Normative statements in opinion policies, these points you can write. And then if they ask, identify from the list below which belongs to positive and which belongs to normative. Tell me quickly what is positive and what is normative. If we say increase in income tax, right, will reduce consumer spending. What does that mean? Whenever government taxes us more, we won't have enough money to spend. True or no? That's not an opinion. No, must be done, should and all that is not there. It's a fact. If the government taxes us, they're taking our money. We won't have enough money to spend. That's a fact, obviously. So then this is positive. Increase in income tax will reduce consumer spending. Government should provide free healthcare to all citizens. So that is basically normal. Because government doesn't have to. That's an opinion. If they do it, that's good, obviously, but that's an opinion, right? Sri Lanka's inflation rate was 7% last year. This is also positive, because it's a fact. Unemployment benefits people. Unemployment benefits make people less motivated for work. In some countries, they give, if you're jobless, they sometimes give you free medicine, free stuff they give. So they are saying, if you give free stuff like that, people will not work. They will just enjoy the free stuff and wait here. What do you think? Is there an opinion or is that a fact? I mean, is there a normative statement or a positive statement? Unemployment benefits make people less motivated for work. Normative or positive? That's a good one. That's a good one. Because the rest one is, I think, easy. Minimum wage should be increased. So this is normative now. Because it says should be increased. They don't have to. Minimum wage can lowest, like the low salary. The minimum wage a person can earn. The salary level in a country, right? Rise in fuel causes transportation cost to increase. Obviously, that's a fact. If fuel cost increases, transportation cost also will increase. Obvious. So that's okay. Positive. What about this one? Think normative. Most of you are answering normative. Kiela. See, if it is a fact, It can be tested. Yes. Can you test this? Can you go and test? You can. Yeah, you can. You can go and see who are the people who are getting unemployment benefits. And you can see actually if those buggers are searching for work. And most of the time they won't be. And this is correct, to be honest. Right? If you give too many unemployment benefits, now look at the Pichakarans on the road. Those fellows, even if you give them a house and a job, they will come back to the road and say, that is this. So to be very honest, then it's actually positive. It is not an opinion, it's a fact. It can actually be tested, and to be honest, real world data can prove that this is correct. So you need to be a little bit careful. These kind of questions only can put you in trouble, right? So that is a positive statement. So try to argue in your head like that. Can it be tested? If we test it, do you think it will give a result? Okay, then fine. Then it's a positive statement. But can we test this? Government should provide free healthcare citizens. Test right? You can't test that, right? And minimum wage should be increased also. You can't test it. It's an opinion. Fine. Right. Look at the last two questions. Why are normative statements important in economics? Why? 3 marks I have given. Think of an answer for this. I'll give you a minute to quickly think. If I ask you a question in your A-level paper saying, why are normative statements important? The answer to this is, like I already said, right? Opinions one day, if today's opinions are tomorrow's policies. Whatever Anurag Kumar Zanaga told when he was asking for election, before election, are today implemented as their policies. So those are the things that actually help decide economic policies of a country's future. Fair enough. And last question is, what happens when normative statements are implemented? I told you that relationship between the two is that only. Whenever normative statements are implemented, they become what? Positive statements, end of the day. Right? So you can give the definition for normative statement, then give an example for normative statement. You can say, okay, monthly salary of every government employee should increase by 5,000. This is an opinion. But the moment this becomes implemented, if this becomes implemented, what will happen? This basically becomes monthly salary of government employees was increased by 5,000. It becomes a positive statement. So whenever normative statements are implemented, they actually end up being what? Positive statements. That is why normative statements are important. Fair enough. So these are things you should know, and these are the things that we have covered in the first section. Question and answer both. I've given you the short note for the first section. I've given you the tude for the first section. Plus, I've also given some of the most important questions that have come from the first section. Okay, first section is over. I know that took a little bit of time, but I mean, this is the first part we are doing the, we are doing the webinar. So it's okay. It's okay to spend a little bit of time there. Rest of these sections are not that big, so we can finish it fast. Fair enough. You can take a screenshot of this. I'll give you 5 seconds for that. I am positive that it's positive Kela 1%. That's funny. That's a good one. Okay. Take a screenshot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay. Shall we proceed? Shall we proceed? Okay, we are going to proceed. Okay, right. So this is your first section that is done. And this is your first short note that is done. My students, most of you are. So obviously what I want you to do is blue color file. This has to go in your first page, and this has to basically get into your short, like in your short note. First CR page, okay, first side, okay. You have to write this, and this has to go into the file. Do all the short notes in the same set of CR papers. You can clip it and you can put it to the file one by one. Okay, take a screenshot of this as well. This is the short note. Good to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. Fine. Right. So next what we have is actually a bit of a more straightforward section, actually. So we are going to move into needs and wants, which is next. I mean, this is something you all have been studying from grade 5, right? What is needs and wants and things like that. So these are not, this is not a time that this, I don't want to spend too much of time on this, but listen carefully. Needs means basic requirements, which are obviously needed for our life. If we don't have it, we will die, and needs are limited. One of the most important things there is limited. So I'm going to add this into the short note in case a question comes, right? These are some of the important points that you have to remember. So needs gattot, have your needs, and then you have your wants. Just remember some of the most important characteristics, right? So this you can say it's limited, right? And then I'm going to say it does not change with time, because sometimes MCQs, especially your term test MCQs, can come. So limited, does not change with time, and common to everyone. This is some of the most important things you have to use. And you know what the most common, the basic needs are: food, clothing, and shelter. These are the three common basic needs. And then the next two are transportation, communication. These are the next. Advanced needs, education, security, those are all advanced needs. So I'll put that in the, I'll just put only the basic ones. Advanced is anything else other than this. Okay. Wants gattot, most important thing that you have to remember is these are unlimited, right? And you can say they change with time and changes from person to person. So it's very subjective. Opposite of needs, basically. And I am not going to list down the example for wants, because there's 1,001 wants out there, or 1,000,001 wants out there, right? So in my short note, I have included this part, right? Elangata, you also have to understand and learn the differences between goods and resources. This is very important. Okay. So what is the definition of, what is the example for goods? What is a good and what is a resource? We'll talk about resources first, and then we will talk about goods, right? Resource means whatever, for an example, let's say you're wearing a t-shirt right now, right? How was that t-shirt made, right? What are the resources that we have taken from nature, and like what are the things we have used to actually make that t-shirt, make that good. So inputs used to produce goods and services to fulfill human wants. That is basically resources. And resources, well, there are two types: economic resources, non-economic. We will come to that next. Okay. But that is a resource. And in terms of goods, then what do you mean by a good? So resource means inputs used to produce goods and services. Goods means anything that gives humans positive satisfaction, not positive utility. What does that mean? If you wear a t-shirt and if you're happy with it, you're getting a satisfaction out of it, right? So for an example, you're eating chicken and you're very happy with it. Yes, you're getting a satisfaction out of it. That is basically utility. You're getting a use out of it. No, that is goods. So anything like furniture, electronics, all of these things, those are what you call as goods. In economics, the joke is there is something called bads also. Bads, not like villains and stuff. These are the things that actually gives you negative utility or negative satisfaction. Does not give you a satisfaction at all, basically. Like for an example, best example we can give, like whenever you use this, you will be disgusted. For an example, garbage, right? Or air pollution, water pollution and things. Whenever a garbage truck goes to your house, you're not going to be like, yes, we will be like, yeah, that is how all of us will react. So obviously, then those are what we call as bads. Now, come back to that story of economic goods versus non-economic goods, right? As far as that definition is concerned, economic versus non-economic, this is what I want you to remember. Whether it's a resource or good. Resources also, there are economic goods versus non-economic goods. Goods also, sorry, resources also, there's economic resources versus non-economic resources. Goods also, there's economics goods versus non-economic goods. Okay. Firstly, what I want you to remember is, as far as the economic part is concerned, make a ilanga page better. Oops. Let's cut this and then move this, paste this, push it to the next page. Let's take this entire thing to the next page. That's better. Thanks. That's better. Ideally, I should remove this and put that. Come back to that. So as far as economic itself is concerned, economic resources means what? And non-economic resources means what? That is what we are going to talk about now. Okay. Always remember, please, for God's sake, remember this. I don't know for how many times I have taught this. For years and years, I have taught this. But these morons still don't remember it. Okay. Economic means there are only three things we are looking for. For God's sake, remember, it has to have a resource. If it's an economic good, let's talk about economic resources first. Okay. If it is a resource you are taking from nature, it has to be limited in supply and it has to have an opportunity cost. What does that mean? I will come back to that. Hold on. Economic resources means two things you need to have. Whatever we are taking from nature is resource. No. So limited resources, or it should be limited in supply. That is the first criteria. Second criteria is this one. It has to have a opportunity cost. That is the criteria number 2. This is, if it's an economic resource, it should be limited in supply. Look at the trees in this world right now. Is that an economic resource or a non-economic resource? Trees are limited. If you cut every goddamn thing under the sun, you're not going to have, go to Singharaja and cut all the trees, go to Yala and cut all the trees, we will become a desert. So economic resources, primarily those resources are limited in supply. Right now, maybe looks like unlimited, it becomes limited more or less, right? And what do you mean by opportunity costs? We will study this in the next section once again very quickly. But opportunity cost, every time we use it, we lose it. Right? What does that mean? If you cut a tree and make it a bed for you to sleep, you can't make it into anything else, no? Can you make it into a cupboard also? Bed and cupboard also. Bed and cupboard. Bed nang bed, cupboard nang cupboard. So opportunity cost means you lose everything else. You pick, you make a choice, that's it. You kiss the other choices goodbye. So economic resource, those two things have to be there, limited in supply, opportunity cost. Okay. Non-economic resource, unlimited in supply. The opposite of this, unlimited in supply and no opportunities. Right? Are there goods like that where it's unlimited or no limit, unlimited in supply and zero opportunity cost? Yes, there are. Only like very, very small, like examples, then the puluan, very limited examples. For an example, sunshine. Sunshine is like that. Rain is to a certain extent like that. Fresh air is like that. Leave that out. Sunshine is the best example. Why? Unlimited, no. Until the sun is there, you're going to have it, no. And zero opportunity cost also, no. I mean, just because I go and do this in front of the sun, doesn't mean you don't get the sun. No. If you're behind me, maybe. But like side dekada you can also do this. No. Opportunity cost there, just because I am using sun in my solar, does that mean you won't have sun to use in your solar? Do we have to fight? If you're my neighbor, if I'm having a solar, will you be like, Anna move solar ganna sunlight ganna, apita sunlight na kiyala ganna bani? Zero opportunity cost. Everybody can use it. No matter how many times you want, you can use it. You can use it for tanning, you can use it for sunlight, you can use it for electricity, you can use. So that is basically where we come to. Economic resources means limited in supply. Non-economic resources means unlimited in supply, zero opportunity cost. For God's sake, remember these two. Right? You buggers don't. It's a bloody pain in the ass when you don't remember these most important things. Ilangata, we are going to talk about economic goods versus non-economic goods. Now, what are goods? Goods are the ones we make out of resources. We use resources to make a good, no. Whatever you use, final product. Now, for an example, this bottle is a good. Why? Because I'm drinking water, I'm positively satisfied out of it. So it's a good. How the hell did we make this bottle? By using glass. Where did the glass come from? They say sand, no. So all of that sand and all that bullshit is basically the resource part. So resource is that, good is this. Right? Bottle. Exactly. So economic goods got that. Same red only, limited in supply, opportunity cost. But primarily two things we want you to remember. One is resource cost, the other one is opportunity costs. Right? If economic goods have to have two things, right? You can say limited in supply as well. So limited in supply, but there has to be a resource cost and there has to be an opportunity cost. Resource cost, because we are using resources also, no, to make this bottle, we use sand, right? Sand, no, to make glass. Yeah, whatever. And then to make your paper, your books that you are writing, they cut trees in Singaraj. Those trees could have been there as part of nature. They are in your books, useless. You are also not using it. They are also not using it. There's a resource cost for it. There's an opportunity cost for it. Some bird could have lived in it. It ended up in your stupid book. So nobody can use it now. You're also not using it. That bird is also not using it. So there's an opportunity cost. Fair enough. So limited in supply, resource cost, opportunity cost, all three things have to be there. Okay, that is basically the definition for God and economic goods. Remember that for God's sake. Non-economic goods nang may unlimited in supply, zero resource cost, right? Zero opportunity cost also. And now that is where product confusion. People get confused there only. So they're like, okay, so if economic resources is also, sorry, non-economic resources is also unlimited in supply, zero opportunity cost. Non-economic goods is also unlimited in supply, zero resource cost, zero opportunity cost. It's like, what is the example for a non-economic good? To a certain extent, sunlight examples we can give. Not the soap, sunlight. The who really, yes, that one. Now, how can sunlight be an economic resource? Sorry, non-economic resource and a non-economic good also. If we ask, if you are using sunlight to generate electricity, right? You're using it for something end of the day. You're using it to generate another product. So you're using it as a resource end of the day to generate electricity, which means there it becomes a non-economic resource, which is being used to produce electricity. Right? Whereas sunlight can also be used for final consumption. For an example, are a Western countries, well, they remove everything and they go and sleep like this in the beach. Why? They are getting a tan, it seems. So those people are kind of like using sunlight as a good, where they can use it to tan their body. The irony of this situation is Western buggers, they remove everything and go and bake themselves in the sun because they want to look like us, brown. Our buggers remove everything and bleach from top to down to make them look like them, white. The irony of this story, nobody will understand. Anyway, that's not relevant to economics. I think it is. I think it's not. I don't know. But humans are crazy, if you think about it. Anyways, coming back to this part, we will talk about this part. Yeah, humans are never satisfied. There's one important thing, by the way. You can convert non-economic goods to economic goods. That is what we are talking about here. We said sunlight is a non-economic resource, a non-economic good also. If you're converting that into solar power, electricity is an economic good. It has a resource cost. It has an opportunity cost also. Electricity, yes. If you go and touch electricity and you die, can somebody take that electricity and use it again to generate their house? No, obviously not. Once electricity is used, it's used only. If your neighbor is using it to power his fan, you can't take it again and use it again. So it has a resource cost. It has an opportunity cost as well. Understand? Right. Lastly, renewable versus non-renewable. Mekat Balala will quickly discuss some questions and then move on to the next section. In the interest of time, we have a little bit more to discuss, especially in the last part. Economic systems. The rest of the sections are small only. So shape the we can finish it. Renewable resources versus non-renewable resources. What does that mean? Renewable means we can use it again and again. Right? Like again and again you can use it. Non-renewable means you can't use it again and again. For an example, right? Megadam can be generated again and again. So renewable goods, after you use, it can be generated again and again. For an example, trees, right? Example is forestry or fisheries. The more you eat and eat, you can still grow and grow. Cut and grow and grow. If you don't grow and grow, then sorry, .com menava. But you can grow and grow now. So you cut and grow and grow also, it becomes renewable. Yes. But there are non-renewable resources also, which cannot be generated again and again. Once used, that's it. Like for an example, your brain, I'm sorry, that of course is renewable. No? I thought it's non-renewable. So let's say you can't use it again. Once used, it's gone. Cannot be generated again and again. Yes. So for an example, like gold, diamonds, right? Those things. Here, I want to say an important point here, by the way. I've said diamonds, gold. One more thing is nuclear also. This is a very important point. If I was an examiner, I will definitely give this as a question because I know most will get it wrong. I will ask that question of whether nuclear is renewable or non-renewable. Lot of people think our nuclear is green energy. It's not carbon emit, whatever carbon emitting or whatever. Okay, super. It's like renew. It's like a clean energy, no, like solar, wind, and all. No, so a lot of people think, okay, nuclear also has to come under renewable here. Sunlight and all is renewable. Nuclear is not. Nuclear is clean energy. Agreed, because it doesn't emit as much as carbon and all that into the environment like the diesel and petrol. But it's not renewable. You have nuclear generated out of like uranium. There are certain elements that are required for nuclear. Once it's generated, it's over. You have to push it, pack it, and dump it somewhere. It's called nuclear waste. So it's kind of like non-renewable. You have to have more and more uranium. Once it's used, packed and sealed, like your brains basically, it can't be renewed. So don't make that mistake. If they ask that question, I would love to see this in an MCQ because I'm sure about 70% of you will go wrong. Anyways, overconsumption of natural resources also can happen, which is what leads to global warming and things like that. I'm not adding that to the short note. As far as the short note is concerned, this is all that matters. You can take a screenshot of the second section. We'll take a look at very quickly if we have any questions to answer. Sorry, I am going a bit fast, but we have quite a lot to cover, right? And we have quite a bit to cover in the next section as well, right? So our renewable resources, sorry. Yeah, these are resources that we are taking. Sorry about that. Change that. Renewable resources, right? Good. I am going a bit fast, I know, but can't help, right? Good question here, actually. Is gold renewable or non-renewable? Can we melt? See, renewable means you can renew. It'll be new. Like you cut a tree, right? You can plant a new tree and the tree will come again. Gold is something where once you take it out from the earth, in terms of it, you extract it, you convert it into a chain or whatever. You can melt that chain and make it another chain, but that's not renewable. Renewable means it has to come from the earth again. Can you plant gold? If we can all plant gold, yes, we will all be the richest people under the sun. Do you agree with that statement? Actually, here is a question for you from this same section, right? I'm going to add this to the question bank also. It's a lovely question. I just got it right now. Human needs and wants. I'm going to add it. What are human needs and what are wants? What is the relationship between them? These are the questions that I have for you in this section. What are some of the tested and some questions that we have? Meva okkoma definition questions. Okay. So I'm not going to answer these because at the end of the day, these are definition questions, easy to write. But here is a question for you. Think about it for 2 minutes. May wage question එක K level එකට ආව. There is a trend now to include some different Yoker ball questions because most of the time they give you Totta Baba questions. I'll quickly show you that also. Quickly show you from the A levels. We will come back, right? Look at these questions that have come. So from 2024, I'll show you a couple of questions that usually come from these sections. Hari. So 2024, Wali, there are these kind of questions, which are very straightforward. Most of the time, I keep telling in classes also, A level is like a Totta Baba case. If you have done enough and more, past papers and all, these are like not a big deal. Make define economic resources and free resources and non-economic resources, providing 2 examples of each category. Mona Totta Baba question this is like a grade 10 child can answer this, basically, right? Maybe not a scholarship child, but at least a grade 10 child. These are like Totta Babas. But there have been 1 or 2 years in between where they give like a Malinger's yoke ball question. Fun times question. So we have to be prepared for those. That is the new trend. And we've also been giving feedback from, from our side and I'll talk about it later. But we also want like more and more questions to be like fun. So like, look at this question. This is a hell of a Mullinger's yoke ball question. If resources were unlimited and freely available, there would be no subject called economics. This is question is there in the question bank, so we'll come to that. But mehema question if it comes, it's a very level yoke ball. Like that, I'm gonna ask a question now, which is right regarding gold. Okay, if gold can be planted or can be renewed from soil again and again, right? Everybody in this planet, in this earth, would be rich. That is the statement. I'm gonna ask you, do you agree with this statement? Or I'm gonna say comment on this statement. Mehema question ekak aawat. Comment on this statement with what your knowledge of economics. Okay, and let's say this is a 3 marks question. Ara yoke ball question එක වගේ තමයි මේක. What do you think? Do you agree? Everybody will be rich because everybody can, because everybody can plant gold. It can be renewed again and again. Yes. So, sorry. Will everybody be rich? What is the answer to this question? Think about it for a minute. What is the answer you are going to write? And then tell me what's the answer. What do you think? Good, very good. Quite a few questions, answers have come. So the truth is, if gold can be renewed, you give the definition for renewable resources first. We will always look like if it's a 3 mark or 4 mark, 5 mark question, always, right? Start off by maybe giving the definition for renewable resources, and then you can say, right, if gold is renewed again and again, right, then what will be its value? Everybody will plant gold, everybody will be able to obtain gold. So will it have a high value? It will not have a high value at all. Why? Because everybody will have access to it. Right? Currently, the value of gold comes from what? 2 main aspects. The value of gold stems from the fact that is because first and foremost, it is non-renewable. It can't be generated again and again, right? It is scarce in supply, basically. Limited supply, because it is non-renewable, limited in supply, and highly and basically there's a high demand for it, right? Has high demands. But the moment everybody has access to it, demand will be gone, everybody will have it, the value will be gone. Therefore, everybody is not going to be rich. Everybody will still be poor. That kind of an answer only we expect, right? So you can give the definition, renewable resources, well, the definition, we want an answer like this. Learn how to write answers in economics. That's the most important thing. Sometimes you might know the definitions, you might know everything, but if you kind of like do not know what the answers, like how to write an answer, then that's a problem. Okay. So that's the most important thing as far as economics is concerned. So this is like an answer what we will write. You can write it in a bit more paragraph, but these are some of the points we will expect if this is the question in terms of the marking scheme. Okay. Right. That's it. So we are done with that section also. Next, we come to another most important sections, factors of production. That Ividigala will finish it soon, right? But I think we are done with 1 hour. I took the first 20 minutes to talk about this system. So we're done with 1 hour. Let's finish factors of production, central problem of economics. Back to back, let's finish those two. Basic problems is actually very short. Finally, what we will have left is the economic systems. That's good enough. Okay, let's finish it and then come to economic systems. So moving on to factors of production. Guys, factors of production is something that you have already studied, right, in O levels also. There are 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. 4 things, right? You would kind of like first and foremost need to know what do you mean by factors of production. A definition. So let's say we will put this as the definition. There are property resources and there are human resources. These are the things that are used. Resources that are used in production is what you call as factors of production. AK, you have something called human resources, which is labor and entrepreneurship. Then you have property resources, which is land and capital. So property resources, sometimes this comes in term test questions. Property resources is land and capital. And then human resources are labor and entrepreneurship. Okay. Property resources, human resources. I gave you time to take screenshot of the previous one, right? Megata? Did I give you time? Sorry, I forgot. Let's take a screenshot of this. Hold on. This has to go into your file. Huh? 5 seconds, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay. Next, factors of production. This is your definition. And then you have the two resources. What do you mean by land? Let's quickly cover. This is, of course, a very theoretical section. So finish it soon. You have land. These are the natural resources that are gifted from nature. Okay. And then you need to know some of the characteristics. Some characteristics you need to know. So I'm going to add 2 points under each of these sections. First is the definition. Second is some of the most important characteristics. Characteristics. And then examples also we can add. We can say forest minerals, forestry, fishery, minerals, whatever. Characteristics, if you take, they are from nature and inelastic in supply. Supply doesn't change. Like most of these are always going to be there. They'll be there. Just because we use a lot of fish doesn't mean, supply will change. So supply is inelastic. Immobility, most of it can't be moved. Now I know we can take a fish and take it from one sea to another sea. But like technically, most of these land, the natural resources that we have, we can cut and take it and go. But like Singharaja can't be moved, right? Or more or less like if you think about the fish itself. Immobile is one of those important factors, right? You can't like technically take a tree, uproot a tree, and then go and plant it in another place. It'll die, basically. You can to a certain extent, but like immobile is one characteristic that is there. Can improve the productivity, we can improve it, and non-uniformity. From place to place, it changes. Location is different, climate is different, right? So the most important characteristics, I will say 3 things. One is land or income or payment for land. That is one important thing. We say the factor income. We have something called factor income, right? What do you mean by factor income? If you have land, what is the income you are going to generate? It's called rent. Okay, that's the factor income. We'll write that separately. And then you can say from nature, gift from nature, inelastic supply, and I guess immobility. These are 3 things you can remember in terms of characteristics. You don't have to memorize everything. Then we come to what? Labor. Labor means, second, all the mental and physical efforts that humans use. Mental and physical efforts of humans. Okay. That is your labor. Example, I mean, in terms of like, if you're a doctor, you're putting mental effort, right? If you're a student, you're anyways mental. If you're a teacher, you're putting mental effort. But if you're like a laborer who's like doing factory work and things like that, then that is physical effort, right? So that's kind of like, let's say, for an example, let's say doctor, for an example, or in terms of like accountant, these are examples for mental effort. Physical effort, now we can say blue collar laborers. Blue collar laborers can be people who have blue collar and work, like factory workers are called blue collar labor. Blue collar blue collar. They are wearing blue collar also. That's a different story. But blue collar is the word. These are called white collar. So yeah, we'll write it as that. White collar workers and blue collar workers, right? Not color. Then that becomes very racist. Okay. So what is the payment? Factor income for labor, that is wages. Okay. And some of the characteristics, live. Why live? Because this is humans they are talking about. So live, they are mobile also. They can move around unless their legs are broken or something. and heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means they're not same. Person to person, we are all different. No, like I look nice, you look ugly, like that. So we are all heterogeneous and our abilities are also very different. Okay. And we can also improve productivity. We can give them training, we can get them to make decisions and things like that. Those are some important factors. I will leave it at that. Then we come to capital. Capital, what do you mean by capital? All the man-made things, artificial things, man-made things used in production. Right? Example, machinery, furniture, goods. These are all different kinds of examples that is there. We'll come to that. And the income that we can generate using this is called interest. And some of the characteristics, three main characteristics, we can say it's man-made, right? We can say it's a stock factor and a real factor. Real because we can touch and see it and all of that. It's a stock factor because we can store it. Machines and all can be stored, no, right? And we can use it again and again. These are some of the important characteristics I will put. Capital A, we can't just put this and walk off because capital A different kinds of capital. And netana tamai poddak kelavenne scene එක. So I'm gonna put a smaller table here and I'm gonna give that lists. First and foremost, we have this set of capital is there. Now, there are a couple of questions that are coming from this section also, because so far what we learned is boring theory. Okay. So there is something called fixed capital or real capital or physical capital. Then there's something called circulating capital, economic overheads, social overheads, human capital, natural capital. These are the different forms of capital. So let's talk about it one by one very quickly. Fixed capital, everything that is, it can be moved. Like machinery, factories, and things like that. These are things that cannot be moved. No? Like if you fix it, right? So that is that. Factories, machinery, stores, those things. Circulating capital, like a main example is things like within the factory, you have these raw materials moving from place to place. Now, if you have a furniture factory, raw materials is there. Then we have something called WIP products. Work in progress. Like a half-made table, half-made chair, those things, right? And then finished goods also comes under the circulating capital because they are ready for sale. These are all circulating within the factory, therefore circulating capital. Economic overheads, well, the best example is airport, harbors, highways. These are all important as far as any economy is concerned. Government only has to spend on this. These are what we call as economic infrastructure. Okay, so that is the economic capital. Overheads, economic overheads. Economic infrastructure, seaports, airports, highways. Then we come to social overhead. Social overhead, for an example, schools, hospitals, operation theaters, medical research centers, drainage lines. These are all things that are required for a society. Yes, you'll agree? So that comes under the social overhead. Once again, these are things that governments have to build, right? As opposed to normal people can't build this, right? Now, next we come to human capital. We have said these are the, this is the area where the skills of labor comes into consideration. So like skills of labor consisting of education, training, research. And we have also said university lecturers, trained teachers, consultants, right? And consultants. And then natural capital, well, we have said these are natural resources such as land, streams, air, ecosystems. And finally, we come to social capital, where social overheads and social capital is different. Don't get confused. Social overheads is what we told: buildings, healthcare, education, those related to those. Social capital is about social interaction, social media, customs, traditions, clubs, and societies, and all these things that we have in terms of social network. That comes under this: traditions, memberships of clubs, social network, social media, all of this comes under social capital. Now, this is your factors of production. Shape, okay, if you remember this, you can write any question that comes as far as this section is concerned. But Here is a couple of questions for you. Now, Pandityotika, now you all understand what this is, no? Now answer this question first and foremost, right? Look at this again. Labor කියලා there is already a factor of production. Okay. ඒක කියනවා mental and physical effort of human කියලා. එතකොට මොන මගුලටද again are we going and putting human capital here? We have said labor is mental and physical effort of humans, no? එතකොට මොන මගුලටද have we gone and put human capital saying labor once again under capital also? What මොන රෙද්දක්ද ඒ? Right? If we ask a question, so coming to the question bank, right? In this section, factors of production, well, may wage totta baba questions are what anybody can answer. What is the factors of production? What is the respective factor income? Define land, what is the character labor, what is the character capital, what is the character pettavat kayawada wage questions tika meka. Did you eat baba? Did you eat baba? Yes, I ate. Yes, I labor is scale. There are some students who study like that. Ara totta baba wage, you learn everything, you get a totta baba question, you can answer. If we give you a yoker ball question like this, what is the difference between labor and human capital? Kira yoker ball lekak malingage yoker ball lekak. Then what are you going to write? What the hell is this? Why is human capital and the capital and not labor? Human means labor domain. Why the hell have you included it in capital? What's the answer for that question? පෙත්තවත් කෑවද නෑ කියලා තමයි කියන්න තියෙන්නේ මෙතන. Why? Because by hearting doesn't work for questions like this. So, what is the answer to this? In the interest of time, I will tell you how to answer this. First and foremost, if a question like this comes, you start off with the definition for labor. What is the definition for labor? Labor refers to the mental and, not you all, I'm saying mental and physical efforts of humans. Human capital refers to what? Human capital refers to the skills of labor, right? Consisting of education, that can improve productivity. End of the day, that is what human capital means. Now what the hell does that even mean? What do you mean by skills of labor? එතකොට labor ලාට skills නැද්ද? Then what is labor first and foremost? The difference is, after you write the definition, you write the difference. Primary difference between the two is that labor කියලා කියන්නේ, it includes the mental and physical effort part. When a doctor is working, or when a accountant is working and doing the business work, that basically is the mental and physical effort part. But when it comes to human capital is not about the mental and physical part we use in production. It's about the knowledge component. It's about, see, laborers, their skills can be improved by training them. Okay. And then for an example, technology gattot, right? There are humans have used the massive knowledge that we have, and we have come up with patents, inventions. Yes. These are things that have advanced humankind. I showed you in class and all. Now, nowadays, it's the Chinese universities that are the top 10 universities in the world, you know, producing research. Research on what? Research on new things, how to develop things, or new technology, everything. For an example, I've told you, in like normally, if you see in a normal place, and if you see, okay, this is a new product that we can use. And if you think of it like that, and you're like, Amar-Siri, I have invented something. And then you quickly think, okay, maybe somebody might have invented this scale. Let's say, for an example, you're looking at a cupboard and you're thinking, okay, there'll be nice, something nice if we can invent like a cleaner for this cupboard, where if we can clean it like this, then I don't have to do a lot of waste scale, like a lot of time waste scale. And then you go and Google searching, if anybody has already invented that product, it'll be there. There would have been a Chinese guy who would have already thought about it, invented the product, okay, taken a patent for it also, mass produced it using a factory, and it will be there for sale on Temu also, where you can buy it for 250 rupees free shipping. Where can you invent something now? These Chinese buggers are inventing everything under the sun. Either way, what we are talking about is, that is the human capital component we are talking. That knowledge component where you can use your knowledge, your skills, your labor, you're training people to improve the productivity. Second, your IP, your intellectual property, the inventions, your knowledge that you're using to generate those, that is basically the human capital. So that's the difference between labor and human. Labor is direct effort we are putting to, like if you're working as a factory worker, that effort. But knowledge component is the training and the inventions part. So if you have to answer this question, these are the three main like points we will look for. A wage question එකක් තමයි මෙන්න මේකත්. What is the difference between land and natural capital? පෙත්තවත් කෑවද method එක, you know what is පෙත්තවත් කෑවද method, right? Sri Lankan education system forces you to by heart. Land is this, land is this, land is this, labor is this. Kiala, you by heart every goddamn thing in the short note. You by heart this and go. When you go to the that's the Pettabat Kava. We train like a parrot to say Pettabat Kava, the Pettabat Kava, and then the parrot will be like Bat Kava, oh Bat Kava, kill the Petta will say, not because the Petta understands what the Bat is. You've trained it like that. The moment you go to the question, you go to the paper and a question like this comes. What is the difference between land and natural capital? Malinga yoker ball. That is what we call as yoker ball. Now listen. Again, if you come back to this natural capital parts, natural resources such as land, streams, air, water, and ecosystems. Did you come and tell us that land is natural resources? If land is also natural resources, and if natural capital is also natural resources, then why is natural capital under capital? You should ask your teachers these questions, by the way. I mean, I'm assuming, they will know the answers to this. I hope they know the answers to this. But that's a good question to think about. Yes. What is the answer if we ask you a question like that? Again, start off with the definition for land, saying land refers to what? Natural resources that are gifted from nature, whatever. When we obtain resources such as trees and use them in production, that comes under land. Here, you start off with that question for definition for land. Okay. Then you start off, you tell the definition for natural capital. What is the definition for natural capital? On the other hand, we have said natural capital refers to natural resources such as streams, ecosystems, whatever. Two definitions. After you're done with that, tell the difference. What is the difference between the two? Main difference between the two is, right? Land gattot. Okay. Land is like, it can be owned. Now, for an example, if you have a tree in your garden, that is also coming under land only. But that tree belongs to you. Your Allah together, auntie can't come and cut that tree. No. That because that tree belongs to you. But if you take Singharaja, that is also nature. But can you go and cut Singharaja? No, you can't. Because if you cut, government will cut you. Those are what we call as natural capital because it's common to everyone. This part, this common to everyone has to be written in your answer. Natural capital is common to everyone. Like the ecosystems, the streams, the rivers, Singharaja forest and things like that. These are common to everyone. They are not entitled to ownership. Government, country owns it. But trees, certain tree, like if you have your garden in your trees, if you have your paddy field, or if you have your, let's say for an example, the fish you catch and come, those are all yours, no man. The fish you catch and come, we can't say this belongs to everyone. Kela, we can't, like, can you go to a fish market and say this land belongs to us, this fish belongs to us, Kela, can you take it and come? No, you can't. That fellow only went and caught it and tasted, right? So that belongs to him. Whereas the fish in the ocean belongs to everyone. So, methana, the knowledge component has to be talked about. Ethana, the common component, the common part has to be talked about. That is where we will give marks for. So, that is why stop using the Pettabat Kavada method and basically learn things properly. Then only you can actually tackle these kind of questions that actually come. Because most of the time we can see now, right? These are the common questions that are now coming up. The new trend questions are these only. Whereas these old Pettabat Kavada questions are over. Right? Good. Makes things a bit more interesting. Lastly, we will finish off entrepreneurship and productivity as well very quickly. Entrepreneurship gattots. Again, we can just use this itself. We'll write the definition. We'll talk about the factor income. Okay, so combining all, there are 4 things that are required in entrepreneurship. I'm going to put the characteristics separately, but I'll put the functions here. So entrepreneurship means combining all factors of production. Okay, that is what entrepreneurship means. And then in terms of the factors or in terms of the functions, let's say, there are 4 main functions that you have to write. You have to remember this, by the way. There are 4 main factors. One is mobilizing the factors of production. That is, you like collecting the factors of production. An entrepreneur is the one who collects the land, the labor, the capital, all of it. So they are the ones who mobilizes it. And they are the ones who organizes also the production activities. And then there are two more things that is important. One is innovation. If you're not bringing anything new, if you're not innovating, you're not an entrepreneur. Simple as that. And the last one is risk bearing. If you're a business owner, anyways, you're bearing risks. So risk bearing is a common trait, but innovation is the most important. That's why not every business owner is a entrepreneur. Okay. Factor income is actually profit. We'll talk about these later in detail. And last one is characteristics. I guess characteristics, you can say it's a human factor. And then you can say, mainly you can say, I mean, creativity has to be there, flexibility has to be there. You can, from that list, you can put anything. I'm just going to put just three things: creativity, and maybe the second point in terms of facing challenges. Those three things I will put here. Okay. So that is basically the entrepreneur. There are differences between entrepreneurs and managers. Managers just implement decisions. They're not entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the ones who make the decisions first and foremost, and they are the ones who run the business, right? So there are differences between the two. You need to know the differences between the two. And in terms of questions, another common question, or another interesting question that can come is this one. All business owners cannot be considered as entrepreneurs here. Do you agree? Explain this statement if they ask, right? True. Just because your father has a hardware business doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur. No, mean you first have to have a hardware business, first and foremost. Second, just because you have a hardware shop doesn't make you an entrepreneur also. Why? Because entrepreneur requires four things. There are four things entrepreneurs need. What are the four things? They are the ones who mobilize factors of production. They are the ones who make decisions in the business. They are the ones who take the risks. And they are the ones who create innovations, right? From these four, from the above, right? Most business owners carry out the first three. What are the first three? Mobilizing factors of production, making decisions, right? Those most business owners do, but not all business owners create innovation. They don't, not everybody brings something new. So if you bring something new, only you actually become an entrepreneur. So that is how you have to tackle a question like that. Okay. So, I mean, these kind of questions are the new kind of questions, basically, right? And as opposed to just by hearting and spitting it out, get used to learning the answering these kind of questions primarily. All right. So you can take a screenshot of this one. There are three questions we have addressed here. You can take a screenshot of that as well. This is one of the notes I gave in class also. So you can take that. You don't have it. And then we will move to the next box. Okay. Tiring, no? It is what it is. We'll finish this part. Lastly, productivity. Make up, I will finish it off. Then we are done with this section and then we'll take a short break. Productivity basically means input divided by output, right? From like a lot of inputs that we have, we should maximize our output. So productivity is about maximizing our output. That's what it's about, right? Because our inputs, we have to try and limit our inputs, maximizing output and limiting the inputs. That's basically productivity. Like if you like less number of hours to study and better results, that means you're very productive. Let's say you're spending only 1 or 2 hours to study or whatever, but your result is an A. Your result is 90 marks. Legend. That is productivity. You're very productive. How do you do that? Less number of hours you study, but your result is excellent. Where level productivity? How? By doing that process that I showed you at the beginning. Do the past papers, do these out of the box questions, do the model papers, do the spot exams, do those. Automatically your marks will be the highest in class. But it will take a little bit of time for you to get there, right? So determinants, technology. So productivity can be improved by using technology. Nowadays, you all are using ChatGPT, no? That makes you faster, right? So technology can improve productivity, right? Human capital can new inventions, knowledge can actually improve productivity, training can improve productivity, right? And then we also have something called management. If we put supervisors, if you ask your mother to stand next to you and look at you studying and waiting, automatically you will study. Productivity will improve. Why? Because otherwise Amma will give you a thundering slap, no? Right? And then we have something called division of labor and we have something called specialization. I will explain these two also. Later also we will study these in detail. Division of labor ki anne, in a factory, instead of one person doing everything, we break it down. One person will do this machine, one person will do this machine, one person will do this machine. We are training each person to do each thing. When that happens, that person becomes specialized, no? Right? And like you can even do it in your sleep after that. You're so specialized. So you're faster, you're quicker, you're efficient, you're time saving. So it becomes better for productivity. The division of labor and specialization is very important for a factory. Okay. So that is that section. With that, that section is over. Next, we have couple of smaller sections, but here take a screenshot of this. That is your short note for factors of production. And I also gave you a couple of important questions. Factors of production is very long. Can we break it down into two? Take a screenshot now. The definition, land, labor, capital is there. You can take a screenshot of this and then I'll scroll down. Definition, land, labor, capital. Take a screenshot of that and then you take a screenshot of this. Fixed capital, entrepreneurship, productivity. So this is your short note for factors of production. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fine. So far we have discussed in detail, to be very honest. These are like classes, each of these are, but within the space of 1.5 hours. We have talked about foundation of economics. We have summarized it. We have done questions on it as well. And then we have summarized needs and wants. We have done questions on it, some of the different ways and the different questions that come. And then we have also summarized factors of production. And we have done some of the questions that have come from it and what are the different things that are tested in it as well. So three kind of like that half of that first 1/3 of that economics part is actually chapter 1 part is done, right? Within the space of this time. So this is your short note. I want you to include this in the file. So this video, this section ends here. And then next what we are going to look at is central problem of economics and basic economic problems and economic systems. Those are the next three. We will take the next, right? So I'm ending this video here. Sorry.